Hey guys, I'm Taylor.
And I'm Erica.
And we are your hosts for Finding the Family. Finding the Family is a podcast that centers around family discipleship at home. We bring in different ministry leaders and professionals to talk about how you can find your family identity in Christ. And if you tuned in with us last week, you'll know that we picked up a conversation with Lance and Mary Clark. And this week, we are going to continue that conversation with them about who gets to influence our families. So stay tuned. All right, so Mary, tell us about some of the effects that social media has had on the brain.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. They can actually take pictures of our brain now. And so it is really scary, actually, because spending lots of time on social media can shrink the prefrontal cortex, which is like our executive functioning, decision-making part of our brain. And it's terrifying. And it gives us that dopamine hit, which is like, the dopamine is like the reward part. It's like that reward neurotransmitter. And so it's this unhealthy balance. When you have too much dopamine, your body gets used to that pleasure center of like, ooh, reward. We have this little device that can give us rewards. And then it disrupts that balance in that as we get more dopamine, and then there's the lack of it, which can cause depression too.
Oh man. Like I think Lance and I kind of talked about this before, but TikTok was like, or anything that you can scroll on a video, doesn't matter if it's a minute or 5 seconds, you have the control at your fingers to scroll and say, I don't like this video, I want what's next. And that's part of the dopamine is like, you're always looking for the what's next. And like, I mean, you kind of talked about the algorithm of TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, whoever designed TikTok, and there's all kinds of things at China, the Communist Party's behind it, but whatever, they already know everything about us anyway, probably.
That's what I said. They had my social security
if they want to know how stupid we are and how we dance, fine. You can learn that about us, China. But it's actually a pretty brilliant app in the fact that the algorithm is tuned so tightly to people's just how long a video is playing. You just let it sit there in front of you. It starts to sense, oh, they like that 1/2 second before they swiped off that to the next thing. And then they just start throwing, oh, they must like,
like so similar
people
type
fishing,
videos.
Alligators or something. And all of a sudden you see all these alligator, videos pop up. That's why in TikTok. And that's why people can just be on TikTok for hours. It's so addicting. And that dopamine hit that you talk about. And it can create a lot of anxiety too. I mean, especially for those people that are creating content for TikTok. And people can get paid to be on TikTok and do that. And I know I know some people personally who it really has created a lot of anxiety for them to be TikTok kind of famous, because you can grow thousands of views really quick. It's so much faster than Instagram or Facebook or any of the
You even
others.
hear about like the developers like on YouTube, or I think they call them content creators, like those people that have millions and millions of followers. Like they talk about, if you think about how frequently they're putting things out, their life is centered around giving someone a video. And people can look at that video instantly and say like, I either like that or I don't, and go next. And their life revolves around their income, their livelihood revolves around that. And I know you and I, Erica, we've talked a lot about like the images put out there, the body shaming, and like for our kids, talk a little bit about, what social media means kind of for our kids and even for you as a mom.
Yeah. Well, so bringing that up, like as somebody who's like an influencer, I cannot imagine the amount of pressure you would feel for, like you said, it's how you make your money. It's your livelihood. But somebody who I just use Instagram. I don't get on TikTok, but I use Instagram, and the pressure that I feel even when you go to your explore page and you see, so like for me, clearly I like looking at home design. That's my thing.
Yeah, ideas.
It is. So like I'll go on my explore page, and that's what I see everywhere. And so then you start to compare, and you start to feel like, oh, I should have this, or, like my house should look this way, or I should be.
Or as a mom, you should be have a clean white kitchen. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. The pressure.
All those things. And then like you said, that anxiety comes rushing in and you feel, it's just a sense of just being overwhelmed, like completely overwhelmed. And then, you know, you're just like anxious. And that is when, though, I will say I have learned, because several times now I've deleted my Instagram and my other, you know, social media accounts, because I'm like, this is doing me no good. And you lose yourself in a sense. And so you have to really go back to, okay, who am I? What defines me? And you know what I mean? And and separate the two.
Well, you talked about even for our kids though, too. Like, what's that doing for Ren? If she, you know, when she gets to the age.
How old is Ren again?
Right now she's 3.
Right now
almost
she's
4.
3. Wow.
Oh yeah, she's almost 4 really soon.
Couple months.
Going on 14, I think I would say. I don't know.
Sure.
But, you know, we've talked about, you know, like the balance of, do you let them have a social media profile? Do you even let them have a phone? And, you know, we'll talk through some of those things. But one thing, your biggest concern, and I obviously agree, was like, you don't want her to get to a place where.
Just the comparison.
The body shaming.
Shaming, the image.
My life should look this way because other kids my age, their life looks this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, again, social media, like it's not necessarily it's a great resource, but it's not necessarily the problem. I think the problem behind it it's the heart of the person using it. So the consumer or even yourself, like if your heart is in that, like I need to compare and I need to have, and I need to search after to be that status or whatever that is, like that's, I think, where we can go back and say, hey, like this is becoming unhealthy. And that's why we've done like where we've deleted our social media, but really it's sad that it's taken that much power over us, even as parents, to say that we need to delete an app to prevent those thoughts when we have all the control of what we consume anyway. So we choose to delete because it's the easiest response, but why not just have our heart change and say, I don't even need to check it, because there is like our churches on there, you know, our families are on there, our friends overseas, they're on there. Yeah. And we choose to not connect with them because we have almost this problem within ourselves. It's like, I can't even control this addiction. And we say forever, we model this for our kids. Modeling. And so if that becomes a problem within us, sure, we're able to check it, but what do our kids see?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we were kind of talking about before as well was when I was in middle school, I'll never forget, my uncle bought, it was, I think, a birthday or Christmas, bought me a Nokia Kyocera cell phone, like the brick. Wow. And it came in this huge package and it probably weighed, you know, at least 3-4 pounds. I don't know. That charging battery though lasted forever. Yeah. I was like, I remember it was actually the old house right across from the science hall at HU that's no longer there. We had a Christmas there, like I said, or a birthday party, but I opened up this phone and I was like, no way. And the reason they got me the phone though, was because my mom, God bless her, I had to always take a ride home from my mom or a parent or guardian because I was always transferred out of school district so I could attend school. And I was at Crestview at the time. And she had this really, really ugly car. It was a Ford Granada. It was just like a big brown rusted tank and it squealed. And I was embarrassed.
You were embarrassed of it.
I was so embarrassed. And because you could hear my mom coming down like by the hospital, just coming up by and I was like at track practice or something. But the sports bus was kind of just becoming a thing at the time. So I didn't have a ride home. So they got me the phone so I could get a ride home. So I would literally call my mom and there was like a number of minutes and I would say, Mom, I need picked up. And then she would, you know, come over and pick me up. And then that's all I ever used the phone for, which was interesting, but there was nothing else you could do on it, right? I don't even think texting was a thing on there at the time. And I know my mom didn't have a
spell with numbers.
Yeah, like the ABC. But like my mom didn't even have a cell phone. Mine was just literally to call. Well, then go into high school. And I got my first flip phone because I got a job. And they said, you know, once you get a job, the money is yours. You learn how to use it and spend it properly. Well, after 7 p.m., you could call unlimited and you could call a girl and it was free. With Erica, I got my first, there you go. I don't know, it's not a smartphone, but it was crazy. It was called an Envy.
Yep.
The Envy phone.
Those were the big ones, popular ones.
My friends have.
I Envy. And I was like, oh wow. And we were like, they made
it's
like
already there. The truth is in the title.
Well, that's when they had a mobile browser. And I think Facebook just became a thing, but I don't even remember what it looked like. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something you wanted to be on. It was kind of cool to have it, but it cost more money to use. But anyway, what I found kind of talking through what we're talking about today and then thinking back on this phone was that we say social media is a lot of the problem, and I don't disagree, but I do think social media has a lot that we can add to it if we're using it properly. But for me, it was like that dopamine of what's next. So on the other end of my cell phone in high school became Erica. So I couldn't stop looking at my phone because I was like, did she text me? Did she call me? Where are we going?
Yeah.
And so the phone became a way for instant access to people and to information. And that's, I think, really the heart of what this is that we're talking about is you're looking for something that's instant and it gives that to you. And you have the ability to kind of to navigate wherever you feel like, you know, because like if we were fighting, I would just, you know, I didn't have to look at my phone. Like we didn't have to fight. But if we were,
you were really ghoster, huh?
Well, I don't know. I probably wasn't a ghoster.
Now there's
actually.
a name for it.
I was probably like, I pursued her for a long
no
time.
ghosting back
No,
then,
not then. But like, again, the heart behind kind of having the phone really was like, I just wanted what was on the other side. And I think that's somewhat true. Like I want that reality.
But that seems so innocent now.
Right.
Compared to like your 4-year-old, you know, maybe maybe a lot of parents hand a 4-year-old a phone or a device and they're swiping. They're swiping.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking and swiping. You know, and I think we talked about before, you know, in the last you know, from Adam and Eve, whenever that was in time, to like 1920, okay, nothing entered the house except what came through the threshold of the front door.
Yeah. And that's like, so
nothing.
Good.
I think we took that on as parents too. Like that phrase you've told us, like, because we were talking about you allow the phone in your home. And so we, you know, you talk about, well, social media is a bad thing or whatever it is, like, you know, TikTok's bad. It's like, well, as a parent, you've allowed that thing in your home and you've given authority to it and it's going to do what it's going to do. And it's going to do what you allow it to do. And so like for boundaries in the future, we've said like, I don't have a problem being that parent that's like, my kid doesn't have a phone.
Yeah.
Or my kid has a burner phone and that's it.
Yeah. And not even taking it away as like a punishment, but like taking it away because like you don't need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we feel like we should have it because it's so prevalent today, but it's not even like, if you really think about it, it is not a necessity to have any of that. And like,
That's what our grandparents remind us of.
right. Yeah. Like
Back in my
you
day.
can live life without a cell phone, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that, but that's the truth. And we weren't, you know, and designed to have that, you know.
Well, Mary
by
said
our
this
side
to us
all the
before.
time.
It's like there's like that addiction to a screen. And maybe talk to like, you talked about addictions and connections.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because even earlier you were talking about, you know, that was your connection to Erica. And so it does connect us to each other, right? Like that's a good thing, but it can become addicting. And it is, in a way, a false connection, right? Because like God made us with mirror neurons in our eyes that talk to each other when we look at each other in the eyes. And
Didn't know that.
yeah, it's
Love
pretty
that.
cool. And we can self-regulate, or we can regulate each other by looking at each other's eyes. And, you know, when you're connecting on the phone, it's just, it's
not the same.
It's not the same. But yeah, the opposite of addiction is connection, right? And
So then what would you suggest for a family or for people who are listening who are like, no, I recognize that my screen time or my children's screen time, that's a problem for us. What would you recommend then?
I mean, people connection, right?
Yeah.
People connection.
Yeah.
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 It's kind of a
Face-to-face.
simple, like a simple solution.
Yeah.
But like also
Feels so hard.
everything feels hard. Like when we talk about the parenting process or how to overcome these addictions or this, you know, dopamine rush, like it's all a simple solution.
Yeah.
Like the gospel, like it's a simple, like it's a very awesome and powerful thing to happen. But like we overcomplicate how to share that or to live that out. And I think connection, that's a simple solution. It's like just be with one another.
Yeah.
Be in community like we were designed. And sure, yes, you can be in community if your heart's in the right place on social media and you're connecting with people, doing church like online, like your heart's in the right place. But like how often are we really, if we're being real right now, that's our term, right? Be real. If we're being real about the connections we make online, how often are our hearts in the right place for those connections? Whereas in person, you can have that genuine connection. And like you said, the design of our body, I didn't even know that about your eyes, that you can, you know, look at someone and have that sense of attachment or security. And so that's to me, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so simple.
Yeah.
But then as a family, how did you guys create connection?
I mean, we had implemented some very fundamental things to establish with our kids that Mary and I are the first family. Like we are a family of two. You don't have to have kids to be a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that is an extension of our family, but we wanted our daughters to see that we're the family. We're the family first, and we want to take care of each other's needs first. Not that we didn't take care of our daughter's needs, we did. But we took some parenting classes. We implemented, I don't know if we talked about couch time yet or that concept.
No, talk about
But
couch
we
time,
wanted
Andrew.
to implement a couch time where when we would come home from work, instead of just plunging right into help the kids with everything else they needed, we would sit down, and either the couch or the kitchen table, it can be anywhere, but we just had those
Mirror neurons.
mirror neurons. We would just look at each other. And honestly, we just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we would just
You're
have
my
a conversation.
person. You're my person.
Yeah, we would just, how you doing? How's your day? And the girls, at first, they were troubled by that. They wanted our attention right away. They would come up and pull and we just say, hey, no, we'll be with you in a minute. This is our time together. And I tell you what, it just calmed them right down.
Wow.
Didn't it? It just calmed them
Because
right
it does
down.
build security. I mean, kids want to know parents are connected, right? And it's ultimately not fun to be the center of the world.
Well, I think
right?
most parents put their child
Not
focused.
Not yet.
They
Not
child
good.
focus from the time they get home from work or whatever till the time they get the kids to bed, and then they have adult time, right?
Yep.
Right.
But your kids
Yep.
don't see you having that adult
Which
time.
is so important for them.
that they need to know. Mom and dad love each
Yep,
other.
yep.
They love each other. They love being around each other.
Like
Yeah.
Mary said, like it builds security, it builds trust, and like so there's the one side of like you create a boundary. Like the original design was that man or woman, they would leave father and mother to create their own family. So like you said, like Eric and I, we are a family. Our kids are the extension of the family. Our parents are the extension of the family. We're still blood related, but at the end of the day, we're raising godly children and godly, family members. So that way our kids can have that foundation at their home, and
Right.
we have to model it. So we have to have the boundaries to model it.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, also tying in the whole cell phone thing, like you have to have boundaries for all that too, because there's
Oh, boy.
things that like, if you set the example on your phone, your kids, they always like our kids right now, like I'll field calls like at home for work, and Crew will put a phone up to his ear. I'm like, hello, daddy. Like, it's cute. It's innocent. He doesn't really know. He's modeling the things I do. But man, like honestly, probably one of our biggest, I think, obstacles in the future is going to be like, how do we set the boundary if we do give them a phone? If we made the decision to give them a phone, like I said, if you're in your bedroom, like the door doesn't go shut if you have your phone in your hand. You can leave it out in the living room. You should be okay with being tracked or monitored. You should be okay with me looking through your phone. It's the same boundaries I have with my wife.
Yep.
We share our
Yeah.
location. We
Yeah.
can look through my phone. You can use it.
Love it.
The reason we don't fear and think that we don't fear the outcome of being caught is because there's nothing to catch.
I love it. So
Like
helpful.
it's
Right.
open, and
Yeah.
actually it creates trust. It creates
does.
security.
Yeah.
Just like you sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
I have trust and security because of the
Yep.
boundaries that you set with me. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough as parents even. Like you've got to set that example. And we've mentioned before ambivalent attachments. But like you said, like when you look into each other's eyes, or if I look into Erica's eyes, it creates a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like our kids are always looking to us.
Yeah.
And if they see fear, like they will be like, well, something's wrong. If they see calm and peace, they're like, okay. So if you guys can sit at home and do that with your kids, I'm sure that's exactly what they model and what they learned.
Yeah.
And they probably, take that into their relationships and be like, man, mom and dad set the standard, the gold standard, the Clark standard.
Team
Well,
Clark. We
and
called
I-
it Team
And I
Clark.
feel like we maybe said this earlier, but you guys have it harder. You do
think so.
because of cell phones and social media.
Yeah.
It was easier. It was easier when our kids were little. It is. We need to be praying for you guys. Like it is rough. It really is. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with, I think we will see that more when we have maybe like teenagers and we do introduce
Yeah.
phones
Yeah,
to them to see them have it and how it affects them. But right now for us to have a phone, that's our, where we struggle, I guess, with letting them see how much we're on our phone,
Sure.
Well, we've talked about this. Like we're talking 10 years from now when
Yeah.
our kids are potentially getting a phone. Like Ren, when she's
Yeah.
a teenager and actively in sports, can't
If
drive.
it's phones in 10 years, if it's not
Yeah,
augmented,
right.
No,
it could
that's
be
my
augmented
point.
What's it
reality
even
and
gonna
all
be?
that kind of
Like,
stuff.
well, look what's happened in the
10
15
years.
years since
I
I had
know.
the first,
Yeah.
my first or 20 years since I had my first cell phone. We're talking about in that time where these the iPhone like 30 is out right now or whatever. in 10 years from now, is it even going to be a phone? And then what content or what accessibility will they have to the outside world? And so, I mean, we don't even know what we're planning for yet. And so we have to be able to kind of guard our children and show them, like, the reason we're doing this though is because we love you. It's not just to shelter you from connecting with your friends and family. It's because we know what this can cause. We've experienced it to some extent, and we've been praying for you, like, not just praying for you now, but I'm praying for your future spouses to also have these same behaviors and these same beliefs and these same foundations. But like that's to come, and we don't even know, and we're trying to prepare for that now.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important too that we do just focus on today and instill in them what is important right now, and then hope that later on those things, they live those things
I think it's
out.
always going to be difficult to raise children in whatever period of technology happens to be. I mean, you could probably go back to our parents or grandparents, and well, back in the day, it was so much harder. For
You had to walk to someone's house to call them.
But I think the fundamentals that we're talking about here of just creating an identity of the family, you guys you create this team atmosphere with your kids that we're Team Petrie, and like we're the unit, we're together, we're in it no matter what, it's safe here, right? Like that never should ever change. I mean, that no matter where you're at, no matter what technology is doing, no matter what, if you can create that nucleus, like there's and Christ is a part of that nucleus, obviously.
Oh yeah, right.
We
and
try
that
to
is
do
what we want. And you can probably talk a little bit about this, but with our home being
that was so her driving factor. We'd never owned a home. When I was in the military, we moved a lot.
We have moved a lot. Yes.
I think I probably lived in like 13 houses.
Like Army base stuff or what?
Yeah, Navy. Like I lived on base everywhere I went, all the way up until I got stationed permanently in San Diego. Even then, I was still on base for a little while. And then I moved like before deployment, after deployment, after deployment, after, something else.
Yeah.
And then back to Indiana, and then in parents' homes because COVID until we bought our first home. And so we land back in Huntington, the place we said we would never be. Actually, the same suburb, I call it Pleasantville, that Erica grew up in. Oh, wow. We can see the house we met in.
No way.
It's right. It's so ironic. It's weird.
It's crazy.
It's really weird. It wasn't planned. It was actually a joke. Kim Patmore was our realtor, and we were talking.
Shout out Kim.
Yeah, shout out Kim. Kim Patmore, 1621. Team
love
Hainline
her.
Patmore.
Team Hainline.
So when we were looking for a house, like I joked about the house because it was
rough shape.
Yeah, and so
had potential, good
Yes.
bones.
Well, so it's funny because that's what Kim
Exactly.
said,
That's
and I said I
why
don't
we
see
got
it, Kim. But we knew a lot of the features of the home we were looking for, and it had it. Just we didn't see it. So I go through, didn't know anything about home demo, home renovation. This will all make sense in a second for those of you who are like, why are they talking about a house? So I go in with my bare hands, and I see it and I'm like, I can replicate this. I just have to take the mold out and redo this. We put the house back together, and in the middle of the demo, we found the original blueprints for the house. And I was like, this is cool. So it was a Worthman home, which was like high-end homes back in the 60s. This was like the first addition put in right behind the high school. And it was cool. There was not only do we have the original hand-drawn blueprints of the home, so it was like the foundations of it. The number of our house is 3. I've already, I'll give away you can find our house now, but 3.
Get the address
and the first person or the first people to own the house was a church. So we were like, that's weird. So 3, Father, Son, Holy Spirit,
the Trinity.
A church owns it, the Trinity. Well, then, so on the front of the blueprints, though, if you open it up, there's a paper clip and a little newspaper article that was attached to it. And it was like one of those 1950s, 1960s commercials. It was like, if you find yourself in the upside of northern Huntington, Indiana, and want to call
Back to the Future.
Home, it was weird. Well, they said, come find home at the Gateway. And our house, it was a picture of our house when it was first built called the Gateway. And we like kind of looked at each other. We're like, I remember calling her and I was like, you are going to freak out when you hear about this. Because Erica's big thing, and same with me, was like, we want our home to be the pulse.
Cool.
And I know it's like not to be like to have a sense of control over everything, but like control what you can control. And what I can control is what my kids are doing, what my family does. And so we said with the home, it had the bones. We just didn't see it. And now we've turned it, and it still are. Turning it into, she gave me the look, if you can see that.
All right, Chip and Joanna over here.
Man.
Chip and Joanna Gaines.
With zero experience. But
watching YouTube as we're DIY.
See, there's a benefit to social media.
There is.
Yeah, there.
But like,
there it is.
in the reality of it, though, we knew this. Like, if our kids were going to do something, we wanted to be able to have them invite their friends over, because we've always wanted our house to be that loud house. If we're going to have friends over, we want to be able to. It's also like, I mean, we're lazy. We don't like to have to go places, so it's easier. Just come over to my house.
We're homebodies.
And so it was part of it was that. And then we were like, well, our mission field isn't our kids' friends, though. It's their friends' parents. So if we want to counteract some of what's happening in culture, we want to get to know their parents, and then we want a place to host. And we're big on traditions, and we're big on routines. And so we said Friday nights are going to be our family game nights. We have increased our stock of games now. I mean, the problem though is
board
that,
games and
old
Ones
school.
I've never heard of. He's
Shut
got a
the
couple.
Box is my
Shut the
favorite
Box,
right now.
which we played. Was
Shut
that
the
last
Box.
night? We played that.
I think so. And Ren.
So fun.
So Yahtzee was my favorite. Ren still keeps destroying. I have not beat her.
Ren beats you at everything.
And I document them. I put them on the paper. I write our names in the date. I have not beat my daughter in Yahtzee yet.
Oh my God.
fun.
It's the weirdest thing. And then so
It's
Shut
so
the Box
funny.
is a dice thing. You play with numbers. And she beat me the other night again. And then we went to bed with my victory, though.
Okay.
I won in that one. But like we said, we want a routine. And that routine is to say, like, there's a guaranteed meal here. There's guaranteed, connection happening here. And we want our kids to go reach their friends. We'll help equip our kids and their friends. Come into our home. Bring your parents over. But the other cool thing is just like, it's all right there. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
When you eat a meal, do you eat in front of the TV, or are you eating around a table?
Well, so we have, I don't know, how many tables do we have to choose from right now? It's weird.
Too many.
So like, again, the layout, it's got a lot of space, but it's weird because like we just got power in our dining room. So there's finally a light
That's
back
a victory.
there. So when we've had like the other day, we had
a
our
long time
family
without.
over, and we sat at the little island in the kitchen in the dining room where there's no TV.
Cool.
Yeah.
There is a TV that you can see from like
But you're
the
not
kitchen
watching
table.
TV while you're eating dinner.
I'm guilty. I do sometimes, but when we're doing family time, no.
Right.
When it is family time, and we've said we want to be better about that in general. Like we want it to be a normal, like dinners at this time, and you can expect that we're going to sit down and talk. It's a tech-free time, but to make genuine connections, and that also stemmed into something that Erica and I have been doing for years. Was like, again, traditions. We took all of our family recipes that we loved and we reached out to our grandparents, and there's so many more we still have to get. But we made, not only did we make them, we like saved them in like a notebook kind of thing. And Erica, I said, I want you one day, like Titus 2, like she is at home all the time with our kids. I said, when we first got together, the house diagonal across the street, Erica could microwave me a cheese quesadilla. Now she can throw down in the kitchen. She can bake.
Come a long way.
She's my Betty Crocker.
Way to go.
But she makes, but what's cool is like, I
that's-
love coming home and seeing, like I open the freezer and there's a tray of cookies, but there's a mess. And so I know that my wife just spent time with my kids, teaching them something. So don't overcomplicate it, right? Talk about that.
Yeah, it's just simple. It's just, those are things that I've seen where we bond and we're intentional. And I'm also teaching them something. I'm kind of, like how to cook and how to bake. So even though they are 3 and 1 and it does get crazy, sometimes it's harder, to have them help than not, but that doesn't even matter. So like, I always tell them, like, I remind myself, like when it's all said and done and I look in the kitchen and it is a disaster and there's a, sink full of dishes, it's okay, because that means I just got to, cook with
Made a
them
memory.
or make a memory with them. So it's just those little things, just getting to do those.
Because like I said, like I told Ren one time, like I have really blunt conversations with my daughter because she can. I know I will with my son too. When he's able to communicate back, he's like a caveman right now. But I told Ren, I was like, I'm teaching you how to be a good wife one day. So like when I cook too, I'm like, I teach her like, this is how I do the steak and this is how I make the salad and these ingredients go. She loves helping.
Yeah,
but I'm looking at it. I'm not raising a little girl. Like this is somebody's wife one day. And it's my responsibility as a dad to show her like, this is what I do too. So it sets her expectations really high. And I like the way I tell her she's beautiful, the way she looks. Crew, the same thing. Like like how proud I am of him that he tells me he needs to go potty and he hadn't quite figured that out yet. But I like encouraging my kids like to be involved in everything that we're doing and everything that they're doing and just build them up.
Yeah.
Because now their expectations are up here. So what they're looking for in the future, it doesn't have to waver. And they're also learning like, it's so simple. Yeah. It's simple to play a board game. It's simple to, like when power goes out, that's when families play board games. It's simple to gather
light the
around.
Candles and sit at the table.
Well, you guys did that, a candle lighting.
We did.
For devotions every night.
Well, that's part of the routine, right? Like we created a routine around this. You had a routine with candles.
We did.
Yeah, tell them about that.
I think you're the one who brought it up.
Well, I mean,
I forgot about it.
You forgot about it. I mean, we did it for a period of time when they were little, but we would try to light a couple candles at night and read a Bible story and make it special and
love that.
And just kind of focus our hearts upward right before we went to bed. And
there's a cool, a cool dichotomy in that. Like you created a routine that was, your phone, it's all black and white, Mary. I think you said we need to have an intervention for.
Mine is too, Mary.
Well, there's like the vivid, the beauty, the brightness in the phone. It creates false colors. You've told me this before.
It's like nothing else. So you get addicted just to the color on the surface of your phone.
And then you said you turned yours black and white to not have that attraction to it. Well, you're talking about today's world. Here's an iPad, here's a movie, here's a screen, here's a thing that entertains you and do a really good job at entertaining and captivating kids. And you're saying, well, let's turn those off and let's light a candle and let's sit in quiet. We did that obviously Christmas Eve, we read the story. Read the Christmas story to our kids and it was like a fight. Because it was also, we waited way too long into bedtime and they were in pajamas ready to go. Yeah. And I was like, I'm just going to power through it.
Yeah.
Like, all right, turn to Luke 1. But the reality is like, but through your consistency and your intentionality, the routine becomes something that kids crave routine.
Especially if they get to light the candle.
And they're
a little danger with that,
though, because then they look forward to that,
like, whose turn is it? And
No, I want to light they fight over that routine.
Yeah, right.
Rather than like, no, that's my iPad. And so as parents, I think that's, and just people that are in relationships with other people, like you don't have to have the brightest, biggest TV, the best phone screen. Like that's not what it's about. Oh, even the best home or the best layout. Like, but if you're intentional with how you're spending your time with people, like that's really, I think, where it is, especially with your own kids. Like, and you said there's the growing pain of implementing the routine or implementing the boundary. But once they start to understand the process and the reason behind why you're doing it, I think that's just like, that makes all the difference. Yeah. Yeah. So,
and keeping it at the end of the day, Christ-centered. That's what the goal is, right? And, kind of back to, having everybody, we want our house to be the hub, and that is the reason. So we can share that with other people.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, like, to simplify it all, like Jesus died for you and me.
Yeah.
And he should be the center of everything that we do. And we overcomplicate that.
We do.
So I think at the end of the day, parenting, discipling, anything that's within your home or whatever you're trying to do to reach people for Jesus, don't overcomplicate it.
Right.
It can be baking cookies. It can be the candle lighting. It can be mom and dad time, the couch time. Like how are you going to make that identity with your family in Christ? Don't overcomplicate it. I think that's like the message of,
so good.
We talk about influence in the home, let Christ be your influence.
Amen.
Yep. Love it.
All right, Lance and Mary, thanks for being here with us today. So excited to have you guys on here with us. Charlie, you too. You've been such a good. If you're just listening, Charlie's just been sitting here with us. Such a good boy. Well, thanks, guys. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you guys for joining us for part 2 with Lance and Mary Clark. For more information and resources, we would like for you guys to visit our Like Church Huntington app. There you'll go to resources, finding the family, and then you'll find all of the information and tools needed there. So thank you guys again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.